But St. Francis, pulling this more into St. Francis, what St. Francis spent his whole life, and they refer to St. Francis' life being one of meditation in the wounds of Jesus. So he spent his life as meditating not on, but in the wounds of Jesus. This is before he received the wounds. He only had the stigmata for 2 years before he died. So before he received the stigmata, he'd spent his whole religious life meditating on and in the wounds of our dear Lord. That's what St. Francis did. Now, it doesn't make any sense to us. What does that mean to meditate in the wounds of St. Francis? Now, somebody out there is thinking, I know what that means, because you have more of a creative mind. But most of us just don't understand what that means. We don't understand what that means. He understood because it was given to him to understand it. God led him to that, and he entered into that. He didn't just kind of wake up one day and say, I'm going to start meditating in the wounds of Jesus. He didn't do that. He started to do that. But what can we imitate St. Francis in? St. Francis, the two mysteries that were so important to him was, or let's say the two virtues. We'll say the two virtues, and that'll lead us to the two mysteries. The two virtues would have been the humility of Christ, and it'd be the charity of Christ. Those are the virtues. The humility of Christ and the charity of Christ. But how did he meditate on those virtues? Well, let's look at the humility of Christ. The Incarnation was of the greatest importance to St. Francis. That's why St. Francis, the creche scenes, the nativity scenes, that's where they come from St. Francis. He had permission from Rome to put up a creche scene and have mass at the creche scene with animals and whatever else. You didn't do that kind of thing back then. He had permission from Rome to do it, and he served as deacon, and he preached at it. And the infant Jesus appeared there as a real baby Jesus, and he held the baby Jesus. This happened at 𝐂𝐃𝐄. The glorious divinity of God taking on the simple, helpless humanity of a baby. That's meditating. Like, what does that mean? The glory of God. What's the glory of God? That's a thought. That's a divine thought. That's a divine thing to ponder. It's something we can now take and we can start thinking about. What is the glory of God? And what is it for the glory of God to leave heaven, which he can't leave. We know he can't leave heaven. But we always say that because even in the creed we say, descended from heaven. And he took the flesh of a man as a baby from a woman. So that's that first, the humility of Christ. Anything that had to do with the Incarnation, not just him being a baby, but that's a pretty significant thing. We know how helpless babies are, how simple babies are, how beautiful babies are, and God became one of them. I mean, I don't know if he was spitting up on himself and crying all the time, but he became a little baby. And he did, I'm sure he did what little babies do. Sometimes you get these writings, I mean, he probably didn't do all the things little babies do because he had complete, full understanding as the infinite God as a baby. So it's not like he didn't know who he was. He knew who he was. But he also he wasn't like walking around telling everybody what to do when he was 6 months old. He wasn't doing that. He was being a baby. He was being a baby. He allowed himself to be a baby. So St. Francis would ponder on this divine thing in great abundance. He would meditate on this thing. And then the other one's charity. So how did he, with Christ and charity, that's when you get into the redemption. That's the redemption. The passion of our Lord for the redemption of men. He suffered. He had no reason why he had to suffer. He never committed a sin, and all he did was come to earth and suffer. From the point of being a baby, being circumcised after 8 days, then allowing himself to be chased out of Bethlehem and chased into Egypt, where he had to suffer cold and want. Just read Mary of Agreda. It wasn't an easy situation. Our Lady had to deal with a lot. It's not like they were just this privileged, this privileged family that didn't have to endure anything. They had to endure things that if you had to endure, you'd probably lose the faith. But they endured them, and Our Lady wanted to endure them in union with her Son, and even so that her Son didn't have to endure them for the redemption of men. And they want to say you can't call her the co-redemptrix. Doesn't make any sense. It's just natural. You just look at it. That's what she did. So we ponder these little things. Anything that has to do with that charity of Christ, anything that had to do with our redemption, and see how it's perfectly united to the Incarnation. But see, this is that charity, and these are divine thoughts. These are divine things that we take and we ponder. They're thoughts that we have where we ponder on them for the divine, about the divine. It's not just there's a difference between study and meditation. Study is when you're reading your catechism and you're trying to learn about this and memorize all of these different points about the Incarnation. That's not meditation, though it could give you food for meditation. Meditation is when you're pondering that so that you can arrive at love. You can stir up love in your heart. Study is you study these things, you think about these things, you ponder these things so that you can come at a better understanding of it. So that's study. But to stir up love, that's meditation. Do you see the two differences? So the first part, we have three parts to our meditation definition. Attention, which we give to divine things, to stir up love for them, to stir us up to love, to love them. Now, if the first part, the attention and divine things, can be in study, but the love part is our objective. We're doing these first two for the love, to stir up love in our heart for them, the mysteries that we're meditating on. That is our Lord, Our Lady, the saints, the angels, the different mysteries of our Holy Catholic faith.